the whole point of today is to help people overcome any of those negative movies that are replaying in our mind. And so when I say movies, we've all got events in our lives where we are, finding those events from the past, triggering off negative emotions. And the whole point of this is to show you a way that we can release it out of a particular part of the mind. Excellent. Well, thanks for coming along today. So I'll get started into the session. So a little bit about myself. My name is Matthew Tait. My coaching business is called Fork in the Road Coaching, and I love doing these free events to show people what's possible. So really excited to have you all here tonight. And the techniques I'll share with you come from an area called NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And that is about mindset. It's about how you can use the mind to start to heal the body, which is part of the reason why I started a meetup group called the Geelong Mind Body Healing Group. And it's also why I've got a YouTube channel called Fork in the Road, which is the same as my coaching practice. And the whole point is to help us get that mental mastery, to get us all going. And so I see a few chats in the chat box. I don't have my chat box on. Here we go. I've turned it on now. Yes, there'll be a recording. I always do a recording and put it into YouTube. And I always send it to the people who come along for sure, absolutely. And then I send it to a few other people sometimes, but always the people who come along. So I always appreciate your energy for coming along tonight. So yes, I'll always put them in YouTube, correct, Leslie. So let's now jump in. I've got a little presentation to keep me lassoed so I don't go too far off script, because I can get excited and I want to try and get us into an activity so that you can have a bit of an experience releasing some of these negative movies from your mind, which are firing off those old feelings in the body. Now, sometimes they can be just from last week. Sometimes they can be from, last year, or they could be from all the way back into childhood. And the idea is to learn how we're coding this stuff in our mind and how we can release it. So my presentation will sort of explain some of the theory. So this is why I do it. I love sharing these techniques. I love getting involved, and I love a bit of group participation. So I'll get you to put in the chat box from time to time, and get some bit of interaction to sort of get you to have an experience tonight. So if that sounds good, we'll jump right on in. So for those who are here, just to test, it's all, yes, Fork in the Road on YouTube. Just put Matthew Tait, Fork in the Road. I probably should just drop a link or something. That's probably the smart way to go. And I can probably just go in now in a second and drop one in there without hopefully playing a YouTube video accidentally. There we go. And I'm trying to see myself, and I'll put in, oh goodness, which one? Maybe this one here. Just there's a sample video for you, and I'll just go and copy this as an example, and you can click on the little bell and that will allow you, there's an example video there you can click on for later and just save it, and you can watch it anytime. And my contact details, I'll just put those in here as well if anyone wants to reach out to me. And I'll just whack that in there as well. That's my email and my number. So, and it'll be in the presentation a few times as well, just in case you need to touch base with me. So I'll jump into the presentation, do my little thing, and then I'll get into the activity once I explain what these techniques are that we're sharing today. Just to let everyone know, I'm recording this, so if you don't want your face on, perhaps don't press on the video button, but you're welcome to speak up and talk, and we can explain and talk as we go. But I'll jump into my little presentation, and what I'll do is I'll just mute. I just muted myself. Try not to mute myself. There we go. There we go. Just waiting for everything to happen. Okay, cool. So we're all good. Excellent. All right. So I'll jump on into my little presentation and do a share screen on that. So go to my presentation, go share. So this is all about releasing the negative movie in your mind. and getting that emotional mastery. So you're like this dude on the rock who's pretty happy about life, head above the clouds. My name's Matthew Tait. I'll be training your trainer today in this little session. And the whole point of this is to get to meet people who are like-minded, who are looking to, shift, move forward, and really enjoy their life a bit more. So on today's agenda, I'll do a brief introduction of myself, and then I'll go into releasing the negative movie technique, the background, and what the actual, some of the theory and where it all came from. And then I'll jump into two activities. So one will be a group basic session where have a think about a minor negative thing that's going on that keeps looping in your brain that you would like to get rid of, or you'd like to at least scramble enough to let it go. And then in the second activity, we'll do what is the more traditional technique, which is more for the deeper stuff, but we won't do deep stuff today, but we'll test it out on a minor issue. So we'll get into all of that and then a wrap up at the end. So my name's Matthew Tait. I help people with anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. I have one-on-one personal coaching sessions. I have coaching programs, and I've got an online course, which I've put onto Udemy at the moment, and that is called Anxiety Antidote. So if anyone's interested in that, I can drop that link just so you can see what that's all about. And Udemy always discount these things. It's only $16 at times, so it's nice and cheap, pretty accessible. So that is my little spiel there. Why fork in the road coaching? Well, the reason was hope, because I reached a fork in the road myself where I was going through anxiety and stress and overwhelm myself. And I thought I was broken, but I wasn't. And I didn't realize how many options I had in front of me. And so I want to make everyone really clear through my YouTube channel and other different things I do to let them know that there's lots of things you can do. You don't just have to pop a pill and take drugs from, say, the pharmacist, and you don't have to just go to talk therapy for the rest of your life. We can actually get proactive and get involved so we can heal ourselves and get ourselves on the right track. And so a little housekeeping today before we begin. Today is completely complimentary, so nothing to sell here, so we can all chill out and relax and have fun. There's no dollars anywhere, okay? My goal is to have fun and to meet new people who want more out of life, and that's really just to connect with you guys. The only thing I offer at the end of today is a one-on-one session I call a roadmap session, which is basically a Zoom session, which if you reach out to me and you've shown up here, I'd love to catch up with you for an hour and we can do what I call the roadmap session, where we resolve internal tension. But that's only for the people who are up for that. Not everybody is. So obviously it's a small reward I give people who jump in, who are here, and also contact me on the details. But absolutely no stress either way. I really just enjoy having a group of people who I can play with all these techniques and share these good vibes with you all. And so now let's jump in. How to master your emotions with releasing the negative movies in your mind. And that's what today is all about. So I had too many negative movies that led to negative emotions. There's different things would loop in my mind and they'd be so annoying and they just pop up and I'd replay the whole thing and then feel rubbish afterwards. Now, it might be simple things like being ripped off, or we made a bad decision, or bullies at work and at school. We've all had them. And those little events, when you go back to them, they might trigger off that whole scene in your mind and you get mad as hell. Or maybe it's arguments, or maybe it's even into divorce, or it could be into something even more traumatic. But for today, we'll try not to jump into those just yet because we're not there to help you out. But we've all got them. And so you can use, I've got two techniques I'll take you through today to help you with that. So a little story, this was fascinating. I thought, well, in preparation for this, I wonder what else I could clear, and I'll do a little clearing on myself. And what I did was I decided to go back to a story of a bully at school. Now, this was a one-off event. This was a very unusual little event. So I thought, oh, that's a nice little one I can do a bit of a clearing on, see if there's anything going on inside my system. So here's the story. So Mum and Dad, after grade 6, thought, oh, Matt's not too bright. We'll send him off to be a plumber at tech school. He'll be good with his hands. Well, I never used my hands in my life. So they were wrong. I just wasn't particularly interested in primary school. And so I ended up at the technical school. Well, I tell you what, I may as well have ended up one step short of juvenile detention, because some of these people were not far away from going off into juvenile detention. But fortunately, all of the bad blood in that school all left quite quickly after year 7 and 8. But in year 7, I had an experience where one of those fairly rough kind of characters, I bumped into him, who I didn't know him. I didn't even know he was in year 10 or year 11. He was like built like a man, or like I am now, but I was a tiny little kid who was 13 years old. And I was in the toilet block with him. And I went to the toilet, and he put out his hand to shake my hand. And I just sort of went to shake his hand. I didn't know why he was shaking my hand. And then he proceeded to crush the hand that I extended to him, and was really crushing down on it. And my hand was, well, not breaking, but I was thinking, uh-oh, I'm in trouble here. I've got a guy who's a foot taller than me. He's probably 30 kilos, 40 kilos heavier than me. And he's crushing my hand, and he's got a crazy bloody look in his eye. And so for a little kid, when I was 13 or 14, whatever that year 7 is, you know, this is, I'm 47 now. That was 33, 34 years ago. And I was freaking out at the time. Now, I thought this was long gone. It was just a thing that happened back then. But when I did this rewind technique on myself, I had all this energy in my stomach that would come up. And if you don't know, the energy in the stomach is because you actually have brain cells in your stomach. The same stuff as up here is in your heart and is in your stomach. That's why you get gut feelings. And I had this thing just firing off right across my stomach as I scrambled this old memory. And so it was stuck in a particular part of my brain that would not let the emotions to get out of the body. And so that released a whole lot of stuff that came out of my cheeks. I could feel it. It was a weird experience. So really cool little technique. And when you get this part of your brain to get on song, it's like a bouncer in your brain. You'll see in a second in my presentation, you can release a lot of stuff. So that's my little story. And you might have a story where, well, that thing's not really going to trigger off any trauma. And it didn't trigger off trauma thinking about it. But when I went back into it, oh my God, and I went through what happened on that day, it actually resolved stuff that was trapped inside me. So these situations were 30-something years ago, for crying out loud. You know, none of these people are here now. I met this guy one time in my life. I never met him before, never met him afterwards. And yet these emotions can keep firing. The movie keeps playing in my head, which then traps the emotions in your body. And so welcome to a method to help release the old story running in your mind called the rewind technique. Now, when you go into this technique, there's lots of research, lots of videos, lots of information to go and look at when you go on that little journey. But this is a way of scrambling and releasing those old movies. So this also known as these big fancy names like the visual kinesthetic dissociation. I think you say that if you want to sound smart. The fast phobia cure in NLP, and the hypnosis or NLP rewind. So these are all methods of getting your brain to let it go, basically, is what we're doing today. So the rewind technique is used for PTSD, phobias, and old negative memories. And I sometimes use it if I've had a fight with a builder and I can't let it go, even though that situation's all resolved, or if I'm, you know, with a tradesman or something like that's happened, which has happened in the past. And I've used this just that I've had enough of thinking about that. I'm not going to do anything else about it. Just let it go. So you can use this for day to day. So who developed this rewind technique? Well, it came from a guy called Milton Erickson, who was a hypnotherapist in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. And when he got into his old age, the guy in the red line there, which is Richard Bandler and John Grinder, they interviewed Milton Erickson to ask him why he was getting such incredible results with his clients, resolving their anxieties, their depressions. Like, why is he getting all of those great results? And the answer was because he had this incredible ability to really get into the unconscious mind. And he had this particular technique where he would get the people to see a crystal ball. I think he had a crystal ball sitting there on the desks, and he would get them to imagine the whole movie happening inside the crystal ball. So it was outside of them. And this is called disassociation. If you can be separated from that movie for a little bit, you can process it and let it out, because your amygdala is a part of the brain that traps this in there. So Richard Bandler and John Grinder, they then developed from Milton Erickson NLP, which is the mindset technique that you'll hear today some of. And then from that, Dr. David Muss then developed the same technique, the rewind technique, for post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's got a long and excellent history. So the United States military has been using this in studies to heal ex-military personnel who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. So there's a research and recognition project study, and their results have been quite amazing. This study focused on flashbacks and nightmares using the rewind method. In only three sessions, 90% of participants no longer met the diagnoses of PTSD, which compared with the traditional psychotherapy would be 35%. And on top of that, in the psychotherapy, I think it was 40% of them would leave before they'd finished the sessions. Whereas in 3 sessions, no one left 3 sessions, which were non-intrusive, which is why this is such a great technique. So the basic theory of this rewind is you have memories in your mind, which you can be put into a movie. Now, some of the length of these movies, they might be, over a span of a year or 2, or they might be just one particular 5-minute event, whatever it is for you and whatever works for you. And this is something for you to play with if there's stuff you'd like to get out of the system. So if you're not happy about how that movie makes you feel, you can change it. That's the whole point. So in order to allow the body to let go of the story, we need to bypass the bouncer, the gatekeeper of the mind and body. Who is this bouncer and gatekeeper? Who is this Gandalf saying, "Thou shalt not pass" from Lord of the Rings? Oh, that person is the amygdala. So the amygdala is the 2 little almond shaped, because I believe it's Greek for almond, 2 little almond shaped parts of your brain that sits sort of somewhere near the brainstem, and they control all your emotions. If the amygdala's not happy, your whole system is lit up like a Christmas tree. And if a memory gets trapped in the amygdala, like those military personnel, then it will not let anything out. It'll keep on looping it because it thinks it's going to happen again tomorrow. So I'm not letting that go until that stuff is sorted, right? That's what it's doing. And so it won't let it go until it knows that you've learned how to avoid that problem repeating. And so if it doesn't believe it's fully resolved, it'll replay the old movie again and again. So we don't want that to happen. If the threat's not there in reality, the amygdala does its job. We don't want to beat the amygdala up. It's fantastic at keeping us safe. But sometimes that trauma, that thing, that problem, or the builder who ripped you off, it's gone, it's past. Make sure you learn your lessons from it, and then we can move on using this technique. So what is awesome about this technique is we don't need to relive the whole memory. You don't have to tell me anything if you're doing a one-on-one with me as a NLP practitioner or self-directed healing, or if it's life coaching, or if it's Ericksonian hypnosis, whatever it is we're doing together, any of the methods I'm trained in, I don't need to hear the story, and I'm cool with that because I don't need to absorb it. And so some people, that's therapeutic to let it out, but other people, if they tell the story, they'll be re-triggered and the whole body will light up like a Christmas tree. We don't want that. So what's great is you don't have to relive the trauma. So we want to allow this amygdala in the brain to release the memory, allowing the memory or the movie just to pass into the normal stored memory, just as a thing that happened, as opposed to a present threat. Okay, that's what we're aiming for. So today I'll take you through 2 different techniques. There's a simple rewind, and I've broken it down into a whole lot of slides, and I'll probably start to jump out of my presentation in a minute. But the simple rewind is more for those things that are just, they're annoying, they're replaying in your mind, or you're holding on to something and you just want to let it go. It's not useful anymore. You're wasting time thinking about it. So I would suggest the simple rewind's more for day-to-day use. And then there's the movie theater rewind, which is more the classic NLP fast phobia, where people with phobic responses, they might have had a single learning event like, snakes and spiders and those sorts of things. But this same technique is fabulous for post-traumatic stress disorder. You've had a one-time event, or maybe you've had a whole year of your life that you'd just rather not even think about, with a whole lot of different events, and you can start to rewire those. If those things are no longer dangers, then they're not serving you. And so we can learn the lessons from them, take away the learnings, and then we can let them go using these techniques, which is why it's so cool. So what I'll get you all to do, this is round 1, and I'll get you all to put into the chat box what would be an example of a memory you'd like to choose to let go of today. Something middle of the road. Let's not choose across a Zoom session the biggest, nastiest trauma you've ever had in your life. We don't want that. But maybe you've had a fight with someone. Maybe you've got an argument with, with a relative, or you've been ripped off. I've had that with, tradespeople. I've had it with other people, where there's been this argy-bargy and I couldn't let it go. Or maybe it's, you were disrespected at work and someone's really put the heat on you and they're not really sort of playing above their station. I'm just going to stop the share there and just bring up my chat box. And we've got an argument with my builder. Well, I can amen to that. Hey, absolutely. I've had exactly that situation. And what was sad about mine was that an argument with son, that's a fantastic one too. Awesome. Fantastic. So there's lots of little things. And now maybe that's still a live situation. Now, if it's a live situation, obviously there might be still things at play. If it's something was an argument a long time ago and it's no longer appropriate, it might be appropriate to let it out. Ripped off by a friend. Well, that's a good one, Jules. I love that. So ripped off by a friend. And is that person still a friend? That's a good question for you, Jules. Is that a person who you would know? Okay, very good. So we can let it go. Sonia has got childhood belief, damned if I do, damned if I don't. Wow, there's a good, and there's probably a few movies playing in your head about that one, I would imagine, Sonia. So that could be a good one, depending on where that one comes from. Fantastic. So these are all good ones. What would be a score out of 10 that you could give it? If you're going to give it a score out of 10, give it a score out of 10 as to how bad's this thing that's playing out in your mind. So we can get a bit of calibration before we start. Argument with manager, that's a good one, Roshane. That's fantastic. We got 7s, we got 6s. What other numbers out of 10 do we have? 6. Yep, there's a good numbers. So we don't want a big, hairy, nasty one from, like if someone was sexually assaulted or something like that, where over Zoom, I need to be there with you if it's big stuff, right? But if these are all good numbers, and I think these are appropriate from the sort of things that we were talking about, and they're annoying you and they're firing off negative emotions, right? So absolutely spot on. Fantastic. Annie says, travel to Sydney, who just did not want to see me. Right. Okay. They just wanted photos to keep there. Right. So, yeah. So we want to resolve these old feelings, and because that then fires off the emotions in the body. And so we want to try and resolve them. So that's what we're going to do today. So these are great interaction. Thanks, guys. So we can see some good examples. And then we'll go back to these numbers. Keep their relative, wanted photos to keep their mum happy. Right. So not happy about the fact that you've made all that effort and then they're sort of, disrespected. So do these movies loop in your brain and keep on playing? They keep on playing in your mind and then firing off those feelings. Or something will trigger off the feeling. You'll follow the movie all the way through and it's just not serving you anymore. So these are sort of examples of when you've got something you'd like to resolve. And this is where the rewind technique is super, super useful. Let me just jump back in because jump back into the PowerPoint slide. And so we've got our example. So imagine that memory is a movie and all the details of the things that annoy you are in that movie and they're all in there. Okay, so you've got that whole thing. And so what I'd like you to do now is close your eyes and see that movie as an image in front of you and put a big, thick black border. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to put a dial on the side and just pretend like it's a TV screen in front of you with a big, thick black border, and you've got that movie freeze framed in front of you. And what I want you to do is we're going to build a safety mechanism in here, just in case you've gone to something that is traumatic. We don't want that, but I want to have a safety in here. And so what I want you to do is close your eyes, have that big, thick black border with that movie in front of you. And what I want you to do is pretend there's a dial on the side, and you turn it all the way to the left, and that image completely blacks out. And notice how that makes you feel. Do that now. Give yourself a moment and just sit with that. And if you like that feeling, you remember it. Now grab the dial again and then turn it all the way the other way, all the way to the right. And this turns it all the way back to normal, and then all the way back, and then whites it completely out. The entire screen completely whites out. Turn it all the way the other way. And notice how that feels. And you can open your eyes. And what you can do now is just put in the chat box, which one did you prefer? Was it the black or was it the white, where the screen whited out or the screen blacked out? It'll neutralize the feelings in the body. We've got white for Jules, that's fantastic. We've got white for Sally, that's great. Some people goes black, some people goes white, doesn't matter. We've got white for Sonia, fantastic. And we've got fantastic. So white seems to be the numbers have it. White is the numbers. So you've got this now new little technique now where you've got a big, thick black border around an image of your movie, and you can turn it all the way to black or all the way to white. For you guys, it all seems to be white. So you've got this white, and that's fantastic. So if you ever get into a highly emotional state in the middle of any of these techniques, you've got this little dial to just completely black it out or completely white it out. All right, so that'll reduce some of the emotion temporarily just for you to get through. So let me go back to my little presentation. So you've now decided white, most of you, nearly all of you made white made you feel better, which is fantastic. So the second safety, I want you to think about this movie, and I want you to think about what do you need, what is the lesson or what is the learning that you can take from this that will allow you to let go of the old emotion. If your mind believes you've got this sorted, your mind will allow you to let it go. But if it doesn't believe you've got it sorted, then your mind will say, I think this stuff's going to come back up. I'm going to look after you because I think that stuff is coming back. And so what I like to do, and when I'm doing a self-directed healing session, or I'm doing a timeline session with someone, or I'm helping people resolve anything internal, I like to make sure that there is a special learning. And what I like to do is with your current very wise self, floating above yourself and going back, go back that way, back to the time when that event happened. And what would you need to do with what you know now, with your wise self, with your experienced, mature self? What would you have to do to not have that situation happen again? Would you not even fly up to Sydney, for example? Or you didn't know, but now if you have that situation again, you go back there with your current self that knows what you know about the different people, about the different situations. Would you approach the situation differently? Could you have a different strategy when you went to maybe talk to your son? Or what were the other ones? I was going to have a look. Or the argument with the manager, or the childhood belief, damned if I do, damned if I don't. Is there something, if you brought your current wise self to when you were a child and you look at the situation, you can say, well, okay, well, clearly that was their stuff. Maybe there's something you can learn that will allow you to let it go. What would be some ideas you could put in the chat box as to what would you do with your current wisdom in those situations? Are there any words that come to mind? Just one little snippet of a lesson, something that will allow that not to happen again, to let your mind let go of the movie because it's holding on to it because it thinks it's going to come back. Now, if it happened yesterday, it might be a bit trickier, but if it happened 10 years ago, it's a bit easier to sort of justify, well, there we go. So Jules has said, ask more questions, be more proactive in managing my builder. Yes. I was the same with that too. I let mine sort of slide at the end. It all just sort of drifted away. And then the last little query was met with some anger. So yes, be more proactive. Sometimes you don't know the questions to ask, but if you took you back to when that thing happened, you now know what to say to help build that clarity. So if you can find a little lesson in this, it's going to help you let it go. So I just wanted to add this little piece. It's really important to me because I've seen too many people shift massive emotions, shift big traumas from the past because they have found a lesson in it, which then allows them to release the old emotion. Your voice matters. Well, that's a good one, Sonia. Fantastic. Wow, I love that. That's very empowering. I'm all fired up by that. That's cool. So with that in mind, let me go back to the presentation and keep on rolling. So you've got your lesson and you've got your whiteout or blackout, depending on which one you chose. And so we'll start now the simple rewind technique. Now I've broken this up into lots of slides. The second one doesn't have anywhere near as many, but I've just put them in here just to keep me on track so we didn't get too off track. But that's kind of all the major content there. So the simple rewind, we want to look at this movie. So you got this movie in front of you, and I want you to go to a place at the end of that movie when everything is safe and secure, where you're feeling good. And so create an image for yourself, which is frozen and is black and white at the end of the movie. And we're going to, this is part of the rewind. We need to find a place at the end. And so I'll just stop sharing for a second and I'll just put in the chat box. If you've just put Y in the chat box, if you've got an image at the end of the movie, it might be an hour afterwards when you're nice and safe and calm, or it might even be the next day, or it might be 5 minutes after it. But just put a Y in the chat box. If you can paint a nice picture of the end when you're feeling okay and good at the end of that movie, at the end of that emotion. Just put a Y in the chat box if you've got an image. Yep, Jules has got one. That's fantastic. Sally's got one. That's great. So a time when you're nice and safe at the end, where everything's okay. Now, like I said, if it happened yesterday, it might still be an ongoing thing. You might want to choose a different one. Grabbing an image at the end, it might be a day later after the event. It might be a week later, or some little moment that sticks in your mind. Oh yeah, I felt good at that time when I was with friends having a drink or something. Sonia's got yes. Sally's got yes. Jules, fantastic. So really get that image at the end when you're feeling safe. This is all part of the rewind, which will then flow on into the next technique, which is the fast phobia NLP movie theater technique. So just make sure you get that image at the end. And so we're going to use that as a starting point. But before we do, I also want you to look at a simple moment before the movie starts, a moment in time when you're also feeling good and safe and you are feeling good at the start. So this is before the whole situation comes to pass. Okay, so same thing. I want you to have a movie moment frozen in time at the start of the movie before the whole situation happens, right? So before the whole situation happens. So once again, if you've got an image at the start when you're feeling okay, just put before in the chat box that you've got, or maybe number one. So you haven't got Y's there, so I can see the difference. Just put number one in the chat box if you've got an image at the start. Fantastic. Yeah, we've got Sonia's got one, Sally's got one. When you're feeling good, everything was fine before it all went pear-shaped, right? So Sally's got one. So make sure you've got an image. So you now got an image at the start and you've got an image at the end. And now we can play around with the bits and pieces, which is cool. All right, let me jump back in. So we've got Leslie, Jules, Sally. Yep. So Sonia, we've got some ones appearing. Fantastic. So jumping back in, oops. And so now what we want to do, you've got that simple rewind. What we're going to do in a moment is we're going to rewind it from that safe place at the end. We're going to supersonic all the way to the past. But what I've added here is we're going to make some noises and everyone's going to be sounding like chipmunks. This is where I'm going to be a bit silly because what we're going to do is we're going to go to that point at the end and we're going to rewind all the way back to the start. And we're going to find that image and we're going to end up at the positive image at the start. And when we rewind it, not now, but in a moment, I want you to close your eyes and just follow my voice for the time being. Close your eyes and go to that end frame where you're at the end and feeling safe. And when we rewind this, we're going to imagine everything going in reverse at supersonic speed at like 4 times the speed. Okay. And as it's going in reverse, we're going to hear all the voices go, and it's going to sound like chipmunks. It's going to sound ridiculous. All right? I can't believe I'm doing this on a live, but that's what we need to do to make this work. We're going to make the sounds look ridiculous. I want the picture to be black and white. Okay. Make the picture black and white and get ready. On the count of 3, I'll get you to rewind it in 10, call it 10 seconds, super fast, the whole scene, everything. And all the bits are in there and we're going to rewind it. 3, 2, 1, and rewind all the way back to the start, making that silly noise, all the way back to the start, all the way back to the start. And when you get back to the start, notice how it feels in the body. Now, breathing deeply. And notice how it seems to be scrambling. Now, you're back at the start, at the safe picture at the start. Did you get there? Just put a Y in the chat box if you got there. You got to that starting point. Fantastic, Sonia. Fantastic, Jules. Fantastic, Sally. Fantastic, Leslie. That's great. So thank you. Well done, John. Awesome. So now you're at that starting point. So go back into the movie and let's go back. Close your eyes again and go back to the start. And let's rewind this one again. Now you can do this much faster when you get the system, but you're nearly there. Go back to the start, make it black and white in that still image when you're safe. Sorry, back at the end. Sorry, at the end, because I'm at the start in my position here. At the end, at the very end of the scene, you got the starting point over here and we're going to rewind it again. Close your eyes, drop into that scene at the end, and we'll rewind it in 5 seconds this time. On the count of 3, 2, 1, and go. Rewinding all the way back. Supersonic speed. Everything's going backwards. All the people are walking backwards. They're all going backwards. And you end up back at the start. And my question to you on the second round is breathing in deeply. You ended back at the safe place. That's the most important thing. At the starting point of the safe place. Everything's in reverse. Your brain's going, what the hell's going on here? That memory. And your amygdala might start to let it go. I want to do it one more time. That'll be 3 rounds. So we've got our starting point, we've got our ending point, and we're going to float now onto our ending point, grab that image of the end when you were totally safe. And we've got our starting point when you were totally safe. Okay. And here we are at the end point. And once again, we'll do this in 3 seconds this time, even faster. And this time we can put some silly noises to it as we go through. So I'll put a few silly noises in for you. I can't believe I'm doing this on national TV. And so we've got our image. Close your eyes. You go to that last scene in the movie when you're feeling good. And 3, 2, 1, rewind. Doing, 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 doing. I'm feeling a bit silly now. And all the way to the end, all the way back to the starting point. Everything's going backwards. And stop. Now breathe in deeply. And take away all the special learnings and put them away in the special learning place. Those special learnings that allow you to let go of that old emotion, that old movie, because that movie is now scrambled. It's got funny noises. It's black and white. It's in reverse. And of course, there's a whole lot of other things that you can do to play with it. So just put in the chat box, how did that feel? Having that someone lead you through that. Is there anything happen in your body? I get this stuff in my stomach that was happening. It was crazy. How about you guys? Made me LOL. Well, that's good. If you're laughing out loud while you're rewinding it, it's like, what the hell are you doing? Look, it's a bit of fun, right? But it's so silly. If you're laughing, that's a good thing for your brain to attach to this movie, this emotion. How about anybody else? Does anybody else have an experience? I had stuff coming out of me. I'm going to say I had this energy. What the hell is that? Anybody else got an emotion or something that's come up? Has it released something, or what happened to the picture? Because what we can do now is we can do a little bit of calibration. Now you can keep on doing this until it scrambles it. Definite energy release for John. I feel lighter, Jules. That's fantastic. Fantastic. These are good results. Made me feel like I was an old I Love Lucy episode because it was black and white. Yeah. That's cool. And so, Lucille Ball, eat your heart out. That's fantastic. So these are all good results. Now, put in the chat box, what is your score out of 10? Like you've got that old movie, you've just looked at it. Now go back and visit it and let's have a look at that movie. Go back to the movie and say, well, is big a problem? You've got the black and white technique, obviously, to reduce it. You've got the original scores out of 10. And we did the learning. What did you learn in that situation? Was there a lesson that allows you to let go of it? And of course, we've scrambled it in your coding. So what is your score out of 10? Sally's got a 2. I think you were a 6 or 7 before. No one was under 6. So Sally is a 2. What about anyone else? Go back to that movie. Jules is a 2. Wow, these are great numbers. 7 down to 3 for John. That's very cool. We've got a 1 for Sonia. So, and a 6 for Roshane. I know because I know Roshane because it's my partner in the other room. She's probably got a situation. We've still got to do some scrambling, I think, because it's a live situation. So I know a bit more about that one. But these are good numbers. These are great numbers. Fantastic. Well, like, nice shifts for everyone. Fantastic. 2, 2, 7 down to 3 and 1. So really exciting. Great work. So what we're going to do now is we could take the same emotion or the same movie that you guys have got playing out, or you could pick a new one. So I'll go back to my little presentation, just the next little piece, and then we'll jump into the next part. And so you've already done this super fast. You saw everything in the movie going backwards. You heard the high-pitched voices and in reverse, sounding like chipmunks, all the way to the start when things were safe. So that's what we just did. And so how did that feel in the body and mind? We've just talked about that and doing it again. We did it 3 times. So really fantastic effort. Some of the keys here is noticing the movie in this event that gives you the negative emotions and knowing all the major elements that are in there. Make sure they're in there so they get a bit of scrambling. Finding a safe place at the start and the finish of the movie, and beginning at the end of the movie, obviously, for it to be a rewind. From the end, safe place, rewinding all the way super fast so that safe place, you end up at a safe place at the start. And add in some funny music or noises. I went doing, doing, and stupid things like that. And I'm sure you've all lost respect for me. That's okay. If you've scrambled your thing, I've done my job. Repeating it faster and faster 3 to 4 times. So you could do this 6 times and keep on rolling. So see all the movie in reverse. People are walking in reverse. The whole thing's in reverse. The brain says, oh, what's going on? And hearing the movie in reverse. So we've already looked at that, and we've already looked at how we've shifted our numbers. All right. So these people are excited. They were chatting about their movies. So I'll just stop sharing for a moment. We'll move on to the movie theater in a moment. How did that feel, everyone? Was that a good experience? What did you feel something in the body? Was there something going on that was a bit unusual? Is there any commentary that you guys might have as to how that was in your system? Obviously, you've had some very nice shifts. Anything that you've got to say in the chat box, just to see how it all went for you before we move on to the second one. So always illuminating and curiously icky. That's a good one. Well, that's an interesting observation. Curiously icky. Yes, it's a bit weird, isn't it? But the bigger the problem, the more motivated you'd be to face that ickiness, I suppose. It's a bit weird. Feeling your gut has disappeared. That's great, Sally. Fantastic. And so when we get rid of these emotions, we can start to approach it with more of the frontal cortex, the thinking brain, instead of the deeper fight or flight. We can start to look at it. We can still bring some emotion, but we want to try and get a good result for ourselves. And if we're not thinking, generally it doesn't end good, does it? Distracting the gatekeeper allows the shift. I like that, Jules. That's cool too. Fantastic. That's very, very good. Awesome. Great comments, guys. Thank you for interacting. All right. let's jump into the last little exercise, which is the fast phobia, or the movie theater technique. I did a little bit of canvassing this afternoon. I thought, oh, I wonder if they've got some images on cinema tickets or something. And here we are. And so we all have these issues. And what happens is we can put some distance between you and the movie now. And this is where the movie theater comes in. So in NLP, it's called disassociation. Whereas if you're feeling it and you're deep into it, it's called association, meaning you're looking through your own eyes versus seeing yourself in the scene. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to distance yourself 2 times over. So we want to distance yourself from the event so we can process it, let it out of the gatekeeper, and then allow it to move on. And so that's why we call it double disassociation, removing you from the event temporarily enough so that the amygdala can let it go. It's not going to happen in 2 seconds. It's going to let it all out of the body. And so the body can start to allow it to release. And this is where then the techniques that I use with my clients, whether it's timeline therapy or self-directed healing, some of the somatic work I do, it's going to help you release all this emotion. But first, you've got to get Gandalf out of the way. The gatekeeper, thou shall not pass, has to be out of the way so we can cross the bridge and let the emotions out. Otherwise, they'll be trapped in there a lot longer and you'll be having a lot more sessions. It speeds up the whole process. So we've got a movie in mind. Before we get started, let's just see, are you going to do the same movie? And took, took a very serious thinking pattern into a comedy. That's cool. That's really good. I love that, Sonia. So are we going to look at the same movie, or is that resolved enough, or would you like to choose another one? So put in the chat box if you're going same or something new. So just put in the chat box. We're going to do another round of a new technique using the same kind of rewinding. So new for Jules, cool. You've sorted one out. That's great. Anybody else going new or the same? New. Okay, so Sally's got enough. Same, new level. Cool, excellent. Awesome. And we're going to really clean that up for you then, Sonia. That's fantastic. And so if you're going same or new, we've got new for John. Awesome. It's going to a new one. So we can clean up our little spot fires one by one. New. Awesome. All right, cool. Any examples? Just give me an idea on what I'm dealing with here in the chat box as to if you can share what it is. Just a little example, one word, or it might have been fight with a boss, or something that's going on with this next one in the rewind techniques that we're sharing today. What is the new, because it's all new stuff now. So we had an idea on what you were clearing in the first one. What's an example? Is anyone happy to put in the chat box or no? Yes? Let's put in the chat box if you've got any, what is the thing that you're going to move this time as an example, which is the movie that you're creating. Let's put in the chat box. Give me an idea on, because I might add in some bits depending on what we're dealing with. Frustration with family. Oh yeah, amen to that. This is true. And so that sounds like could be a live situation, a tiff with a friend. Yeah, that could be an interesting one. Dodgy colleagues. Well, it's the movie and how that's making you feel, so you can resolve it, and then you turn on the brain. You don't flip your lid, that you get to keep it online. I'm just going to turn my heater off here because it's cold. Stepping out of the shadows of others. Wow, that's cool. That's really good. Well, that could be a good one. So there's going to be a movie that will probably help release some of that. Okay. So now the movie theater technique that can be used with bigger traumas, but we all need to add in some other work with it. So that's why I'm suggesting we don't go into anything that's too full on in an online Zoom, or I don't get to see you, right? Because if I don't get to see you, I'm not going to be able to help you overcome if things go a bit sideways, okay? So that is all good. So we'll have a go at those and see if we can move them. And now give us a score out of 10. How are you feeling about these things? Are they sort of 8s, 6s? Give us a score out of 10. And so we can do a bit more calibration. We've got out of 8. Yep, that's cool. 2 for the friends. They can be very emotional, especially if it's your workplace, and these people are doing dodgy things, or it's friends having tiffs with, or, yep, so we've got 8s. Okay, cool. So we've picked a good one for the movie theater technique. So we'll be on my game then. Cool. All right. Excellent. Now, remember, if you get too emotional as we go through it and we look at the movie again, what we can do is we can draw that big, thick black line around. And in fact, let's do that now. Close your eyes and imagine a still image of this movie and put a big, thick black frame around it in front of you. And put the dial on the side where you had it before and turn the dial all the way one way. It becomes all white. And notice how that feels. And of course, you can also turn it all the way to black, but most people it was white. And if that feels a bit better, just put a Y in the chat box. If that's just reduced it enough that, okay, I feel like I've got a lever now. I feel like if I get emotional, I can handle it. Just the Y in the chat box if that's helping a little bit. Cool. Excellent. That's really good. Fantastic. Doing really well, guys. This is a fantastic session. All right, so we've got Sally, Sonia, Jules, fantastic, all yeses. So that turning all the way to white. And of course, if you like it the other way, turn it all the way to black. It scrambles the image in your mind a little bit more. And that some people like black, but it's different for everybody. Most people here are white. All right, so you got that. Now, the other thing is, we'll do the same thing we did last time. I like to add this little piece. In this movie, in this scene, in this situation, what is the lesson that you could extract from this that will allow you to let some of that go today? Let's put in the chat box if there's a little lesson and some learning. You bring your wisest self, your current mature self, or your higher being, and you bring it down to give you a good result where you've thought through the consequences and you think, all right, what can I do that's different that I've done before? How can I approach this differently? How can I get a better result? So what would be, don't poke the bear. That's an interesting one. At least be aware if there's a bear and it's poked, what happens in certain ways. So awareness would be a good word, maybe. We don't want to be working on eggshells, but that's pretty good. We all look at the world in different ways. That's an interesting one. It's bringing in the NLP presuppositions. It's okay to bring fun to the situation. All right, excellent. These are really good. And so these are giving permission. I'm hearing sort of some subtext going on under the surface. So really great ideas coming through. If this is the thing that's going to allow you to let this out so that you can start thinking again and not be sent into fight or flight, then we are on a winner. So we've got our black frame idea with the dial to bring it back to white or black. And we've got the special learnings, which we can store away. So keep those in mind as we go through. And so now let's jump into the movie theater technique. And I think I was going to do this one mostly from my own mind. And so the movie theater, I won't go through all of this. I'm going to just actually explain this, but it'll be sitting in the slides. So I'll come back to this. And this is just my way of doing it. So I'm going to just hit the stop there. And what I'm going to get you to imagine is that imagine that you are going to the movies and you've got a golden ticket and you're walking into the movie theater. It's a big, huge, colossal movie theater. And there's like 200 rows and you're going to sit up the back. And you're going to sit up the back. You're a long way from the front and the movie's quite a distance away, the movie screen. And so you've walked in there, you've sat down. Are you comfy? Can you imagine yourself in there? You can close your eyes if you like to go through this with me. And you're sitting there in the movie. You got your popcorn. You're sitting there all ready to watch your movie. And your movie is going to be up on the screen. And we're going to, once again, make sure that we've got a safe place at the very start and a safe place at the very end of the movie in black and white in stills. So on the movie screen, just imagine that safe place at the start. Just put a Y in the chat box if you've got the safe place at the start when everything's cool before this whole situation started to go. Everyone's got a safe image in their mind's eye. Excellent. Excellent. And similarly, do you have a safe place at the end of the movie? Just put the word end. Or maybe number two. Put number 2 in the chat box if you've got a safe place at the end of the movie. Yep, number two, excellent. So we've got a safe place at the start, a safe place at the end. So you already know what we're going to do with this. But we're looking at it up on the screen. And I want to make sure you're looking and you can see yourself up there in the screen with this whole movie about to start. And it's black and white. And you can see yourself up there and you can see the other people up there on the screen. And so you're looking through your own eyes at those people, which is you over there. Okay, that's the first dissociation. And if you can see that, what I want you to do now is imagine that behind you is a projector booth. And behind you is a projector booth, but it's not just there near the back. It's actually another 50 meters away. It's a super duper projector booth that can shoot the image all the way through. And I want you to float out of your body and all the way back, and you are going to the projector booth and float into the projector booth behind the Perspex glass. And you can see yourself down there 50 meters away, and you can see the back of your head. And you can see the back of your head, and you can see you're watching the movie, which is even further away. This is the second dissociation, the second separation. And so you're looking at yourself, and you're looking at yourself looking at the movie in black and white. And so I want you to watch yourself, watch the back of your head sitting there in the back row. You're sitting in the projector booth a long way away, but you know it's you because it's the only person in the cinema. And I want you now to press the play button on the movie. And I want you to go from the very safe place at the start and play it all the way through to the end place, the end safe place, with all, all of the key features, all the key moments when it all went pear-shaped and you felt this and you felt that. They're all in there, and it's in black and white, and you're going all the way through. And tell me when you get to the end of the movie. So you've gone from the start and you're going to the end, and get to the end. And if it brings up anything, just let me know in the chat box and we can do the black and white thing. But go all the way through to the end and get to the other side. And let me know when you've got to the end. Put number 3 when you get to the end. 3, cool, 3, awesome. And so now you're looking at yourself through the projector booth, and you're looking at you in the back of your head, sitting in the back row there, 50 meters away, who's looking at this screen. You've just gone to the safe place at the end. Now, from this safe place at the end, what we're going to do now is we're going to float out of the projector booth. So you've got bodies all over the place here, but you're going to float out of the projector booth. I want you to float into the seat where you're sitting in the cinema. Float into your body, and you can see the screen frozen on that last safe image where you're nice and safe. And when you've got there, now I want you to float up out of your body, and I want you to float into the screen. And now you're in the movie, and you're looking through your own eyes. Everything's black and white. And you're looking through your own eyes, and you're at the safe scene at the very end of the movie. And as you're sitting there at this safe scene at the end of the movie, what we're going to do now is we're going to take that same rewind technique we did before. We're going to start at the very end and go to the very beginning. And in supersonic speed, we're going to rewind all the way through, same chipmunk noises, and we'll add some other noises later. And let's do the first round. We're going to rewind the whole thing in supersonic, everyone going backwards on the count of 3, 2, 1, and rewind all the way about. Everyone's in reverse. Everyone's in reverse. All the way through, and back to the safe place at the start. Should go on this way. All the way to the start. And notice how that makes you feel. And what I like to do now, as we get to this safe place at the start, I'm going to assume you're all there for the moment. Breathe in deeply and float above the time stream of this movie, going all the way back to the starting point again. Sorry, to the end again. Sorry. Go all the way back to the end again, floating down onto the end, looking through your own eyes, and let's rewind it again. And let's rewind it all the way back from the very starting point to the very end, and rewinding it all the way back. And this time in 5 seconds, supersonic speed, chipmunk noises, and I'll add in some other noises as we go through. 3, 2, 1, close your eyes and rewind. Doink, 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 doink. I can't believe I'm doing this on a live stream. All the way back to the start. And relax. Now let's float up over the top of the time stream again, all the way back to the end point. And we'll do it one more time. And this time in 3 seconds, the whole thing with all those scenes in there, all reversing on the count of 3, 2, 1, and rewind. All the way to the start. And breathing deeply, taking all the special learnings and storing them in the special learning place, those lessons that allow you to let it go, the ones you typed in the chat box, the ones that allow you to resolve, dissolve, and let this out of the amygdala. And as you breathe in deeply, I want you to float out of the movie now, back into your seat, and take your golden ticket, and you can walk out of the theater and back to the present moment. And so now let's do a bit of a test. Let's go back to this movie in your mind, and let's go and have a look in the chat box and tell me, what is the score out of 10 now? Have you scrambled it? Have you let some of it go? What happened for you in the chat box? What's the score out of 10? Put in the chat box how we went. We've got a 2 for Sally. I think you were an 8 before. 3 for Jules. That's very cool. I think everyone was 8s before. Fantastic. Sonia's down to 3. So you've done a nice bit of scrambling there. You let some of it out. 8.5 down to 2 for John. Wow, that's super cool. I'm very excited by that. These are good numbers. So you've moved these emotions. You've moved the movie. You've scrambled it enough. You don't have to get rid of it completely if you don't want to, but you can resolve old trauma. Now, you're using events that are not those big traumatic ones, but you could imagine in a couple of sessions how you could do a lot of shifting of some of those old traumas. And so this has been super exciting. I'm really excited by these numbers. And I'll just finish my little presentation, but that is the rewind techniques. Number 1, which was more a Richard Bandler technique. I've seen him do many times on different videos and read books on him, who was one of the creators of NLP. That was the first one we did, which is where you just literally, oh, what am I upset about? I'm going to go to the last scene where I feel safe, rewind it all the way back until I feel safe at the start, do it 2 or 3 times, scramble it, put some funny noises in. That was the first one. The second one is where we have to disassociate twice, is called the movie theater technique, or the fast phobia in NLP, if you've got a phobia of spiders or something. And so what that does is it disassociates you enough that you can go through the details and then scramble them and then jump back in and see if you can scramble them being in the event. Those are the 2 techniques we've been through tonight. I hope you've got a lot out of that. What I'll do is I'll just jump back into my presentation and just wrap up the official part of our little presentation. And that's what these keys to the movie theater technique are here. So you're imagining you're in a movie theater. You've got 100 rows. I think I made it 200 rows. So you're a long way from the screen, right? The whole point is the disassociation part, the separation. So you're in the movie theater seat. You've got the details on the screen, and we make the movie on the screen black and white. We float out of the body and up into the projector booth, which is the second separation. And that tends to do quite a lot, depending on which way we need to point. Remember, the anchor can be fired off at any time. Now, we didn't do an anchor tonight. What we did was the black and white technique. We noticed the projector booth was a further 50 meters, even further back from the back row of the movie theater. So we had further distance, which really helped. And we watched the back of the head of you in the cinema watching the movie. That's a key piece, because some people won't do that automatically in their mind. You've got to really spell that out. And once you've watched it in black and white movie, jump into the screen in black and white and reverse the movie like we did before. And then freeze when back at the safe place. Then all I did was got you to float up on top, all the way back to the start, and then back into the movie. So that is the session. So just a quick wrap up, and we can have a quick chat. So at the beginning of the day, I promised that opportunity. If anyone wants to reach out and do that complimentary roadmap session, just send me a text or an email by tonight or by midnight or just tonight before I wake up in the mornings. And I'll honor that one-on-one session. So I can show you what I do, and I can actually help you completely obligation-free to have a session and show you what you can do with your own mind and your own body. And so to claim it, just type "let's chat" into a text, and that's all that I'm offering today. So that's pretty much it. And the whole point of the roadmap, it's your starting point, like a Google Maps search, your destination and your directions to get there. That's what we do when we do our coaching mindset. So that is pretty much it. Questions and answers. I've got a couple of links there, etc. And I can send you all some links. You can grab my details there. And if you want to reach out to me, it's matt@forkinroad.com.au. You've got the YouTube video there you can look at. And I can also put that in the chat box, and my Facebook page is there. So I'll just go back into my chat box, and I'll stop sharing there. And any other questions? How did you all go with that second round? Because we didn't talk about that. Thank you, Leslie, for jumping on. Really appreciate that. Fantastic, John. How did you feel about that second round? Your numbers went down a long way. What are some thoughts that you had in the chat box? How did you go with those movements? Because they're big movements. And so I'm wondering, how does it resonate, those movies that were playing in your mind? Thank you, Sonia. That's fantastic. I really hope you got something out of it. And clearly you can do a lot with these techniques. You can Google away. But if you want fast movement, that's where people come and see someone like myself. Good to get the brain learning to do this. Yes, and so you're learning the coding of your own brain, which is fantastic. Super love this technique and got a lot out of it today. Thank you, Sonia. Fantastic. Thank you for coming along. I really appreciate you jumping on. And so who do we still have in the room? We've got John, Jules, Leslie, Shane, Sally, Sonia, and Tafia. Thank you, everyone, for coming along today. I hope you got something out of it, and you can check me out on Fork in the Road. I'm releasing videos normally once a week. I'm trying to be more consistent. I've got a Facebook page. There's a website, which is called forkinroad.com.au. Maybe I should be dropping that one in for you guys then. I should go and get that for you. I'll grab that. The wonders of modern technology, isn't it incredible? Control-C, and I'll put that in there. So you can go check me out over there at Matt at Fork in the Road. Thank you, Jules. I appreciate you coming today. So if anyone wants to reach out to me and do one of those one-on-one sessions, just shoot me a message and I'll reach out to you in the next day or so. And we'll have a chat and figure out a time. But apart from that, I hope you got something out of tonight. It's 8:38, not too bad. Done pretty well. I've got through all the content, and you've gone through two really cool techniques, and I really love them, and they've helped me personally. I've helped clients with it, and now I've helped you with it. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.